President-elect Donald Trump's pick for Attorney General has withdrawn his name from consideration. Matt Gaetz announced the news on social media. The decision follows multiple investigations into his alleged sexual misconduct. And now there is a new question about who Trump will appoint to head up the Department of Justice. Let's bring in now former Michigan Congressman Fred Upton. Congressman, good to have you with us. You served the people of Michigan, representing them from 1987 up until last year. Michigan, obviously, an important state, but continues to be important. Talk to me, just first of all, how you're taking in this news and how the folks in Michigan are viewing this development.
Well, a couple of things. You know, Matt Gaetz thought that he could hide from this ethics report that was a couple years in the making. I served with Matt Gaetz. Everyone around him sort of knew some of the episodes, the women, the drugs. I mean, he was bragging about it quite a bit. The ethics committee, though, he thought he could avoid that, which is why he resigned from this Congress last week, or just before the announcement was made, because traditionally the ethics committee, once someone no longer serves as a member of Congress, that ethics investigation just goes away. It never becomes public again. So he thought he could run away from that. It would not be divulged. He had the speaker's consent. The speaker said he didn't want to get it, allow it to be divulged. There was a 5-5 tie among this is a committee that's equally divided between Republicans and Democrats, 5-5, and you have to have a majority vote for anything to happen. And it was deadlocked. They were supposed to meet last week. They delayed it. They met again yesterday. It was a 5-5 deadlock. So there was a real question as to whether any of the lurid details would be released. And he thought that was going to be the end of it. But there's this little procedure in the House called a privileged resolution, where a member of Congress with this, in essence, the support of their side of the aisle can demand a vote on just about you name it. And it came out yesterday that, in fact, the Democrats were going to offer a privileged resolution, which meant within 2 legislative days, if they had the votes to pass it, and there would have been a vote first to table it, so it would never be considered. But if the votes were there to pass it, then, in fact, that ethics report would be released. And already some Republicans, remember, the margin is just 2 or 3 votes here, man. Already 2 Republicans indicated that they would vote for the privilege resolution to release the document. I suspect that there would have been at least another dozen or so, no matter how much pressure was put on. And that was, in essence, the straw that broke the camel's back.
So,
Matt Gaetz saw that report was going to get released. It was going to be terribly damaging. It was going to be released to the Senate, and therefore Humpty Dumpty could not be put back together again.
So, Congressman, it sounds like you believe that Gaetz withdrew from Congress to try and stifle this ethics committee investigation and is now withdrawing from consideration for Attorney General to try and stifle the release of this investigation. Assuming that that's correct, is this a surprise to you at all that he has pulled himself from consideration, or did you think he was going to take this through to the end?
Well, no one wants to go down in flames. I mean, George Santos, you remember that debate and the last number of months, he did go down in flames because the House, in fact, did vote to expel him. Everyone thought that he might take the easy way out, protect himself to a degree and withdraw, because he was always a distraction to the proceedings in the House. But Gaetz, I believe that Gaetz, until he saw that the ethics report was actually going to be released, thought that there was going to be a pathway. You look at the Senate Judiciary Committee, most of the members, just like in the House, these are hard, both sides, Republicans and Democrats, they have their hardcore supporters that are stacked on that committee, whether you be a Democrat to the left or a Republican to the right, both the House and the Senate. So the votes were probably there in the Senate Judiciary Committee to pass Gaetz. But the question was then going to be, would he have the votes on the Senate floor to get done, knowing that you've got a couple of Republicans like Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins, few others that were probably more than willing to say, no, we're not going to go along with this. But then you have the opportunity with the recess appointment. That's something that the Trump administration, the new Trump administration, was able to get a concession out of the three contenders for the majority leadership race, John Cornyn, John Thune, and Rick Scott, all pledged prior to the vote that they would be open to having recess appointments. So the Trump team was playing chess here. They knew that Gaetz was going to be trouble, but they also knew that if the Senate went into recess, if he got out of committee, he actually could get a recess appointment that would have been good for the 2 years. So there was a pathway to get this thing done, but that was keeping the ethics report under lock and key. That strategy was pretty apparent that it was going to fail with the issuance of this privilege resolution that the Democrats were prepared to offer as early as today, which would have meant that the vote would have been just a day or two after Thanksgiving. So it wasn't going to happen. Gaetz did the right thing. He stepped aside. I know Trump said that he's got a great future. I don't think he does. But there'll be a different pick that'll be coming in the next number of days.